Good evening. Welcome to SEC Basketball Reaction. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by my co-host, Blake Lovell. Tennessee is on the verge of knocking off UCLA, and if it happens, and it would be a miracle if it didn't at this point, the Vols are heading towards a Sweet 16 date with one of either Kentucky or Illinois, one of which it has played twice, one of which it has played once this year. Blake, awfully impressive performance from the Vols, and I think this is one of these that if you said Tennessee's going to win the game, it happens about the way it happened tonight.
Yeah, we knew this would be a lower scoring game. I said I wouldn't be surprised if this stayed in the 50s. Well, we always do this with the caveat anytime we start before the game is officially over. If UCLA makes the comeback, this will be the biggest comeback in the history of civilization, perhaps. And they'll get out of the 50s, but I find that hard to believe here. It just seemed like this was what you were going to get. Two teams that, we looked at them defensively, knew what they were capable of. We also said, offensively at times they may not get enough credit. I think specifically that means Tennessee. They did have that early stretch where they had a bit of a drought, which was, not that unexpected because you knew, against the Mick Cronin team, that's going to happen to a lot of teams, especially, again, sometimes we've seen that throughout the season for Tennessee. But really, we said coming to the game, they're top 20 offense now in the country. One of the big reasons for that is Chaz Lanier and just what he brings to the table. I thought this was a tough matchup coming in just because you had two teams that, and I feel like I may have said I didn't think this would be one of those where either team got sort of a double-digit sort of lead in a game like this. You're like, all right, this is going to be every possession, back and forth, maybe a 7-8 point game at most. But no, I'll give Tennessee credit. They were able to sort of take control with their defense, but at the same time, having a guy like Chaz Lanier make things a little bit easier when it comes to just his ability to knock down shots. And, that just made the game so much simpler here. And, of course, it's kind of your usual trio, Chris. Lanier with 20, Ziegler with 13. Now, again, they may score a couple more in the final minute. But and then Gainey with 13. Gainey's been a big part of their success, too, here down the stretch.
Lanier breaking the single season 3-point record was really a shocker. First of all, I just remember how good a shooter Chris Lofton was. It never would have occurred to me that and then, of course, last year, Dalton Connect, that somebody would be breaking that record. And I just think back to the midseason slump that Lanier had when he just couldn't throw it in the ocean for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The kid has come back with a vengeance, and now you're looking at a guy that's playing so well as Tennessee heads into the Sweet 16. I've said this before, it bears repeating. I think the thing that I like about this team is it's got a star scorer like him, but just the other parts have just been so reliable lately. I feel like whoever they put on the floor gives them something. I guess if you're looking for things that went wrong tonight, Jemai Mashak got in foul trouble with a couple early and sat some. But I remember thinking when he went out, Tennessee's got enough guys to defend without him, and it did.
Yeah, and I just think that goes back to the one thing you can always count on, and we say it every year. It's just like they do seem to just find ways just to lock down in these kind of matchups against a team like UCLA. And, we've talked about, sure, at times there have been other teams that maybe just get a little hot shooting, but we say that, right? I think the thing we talked about with Tennessee during the regular season, even when they're losing games, some of those games are losing. Let's say, they lose a couple to Kentucky. Kentucky scores 75 and 78. Not like they're giving up 90 or something.
Right.
Just couldn't find enough ways to get a few extra points. The Vanderbilt, 76, 75. Obviously, the first Florida game, that was what it was. The Auburn game, that was kind of played the way they needed to play to win. Just came up a bucket short. Ole Miss game, kind of the similar situation, although the defense was not as, consistent in that game. But it always goes back to that. It's just like they're going to find ways to slow you down at some point. It's just can you keep enough going offensively? And I do think it's kind of one of those where when you have Lanier now, and of course we said the same thing last year about Connect, it makes the game so much easier. when that guy is just getting open shots, hitting open shots, and just having that 3-point element. I mean, that's, in all honesty, right? Like, I'm not saying they're the exact same team, but when you compare one of those, let's say Tennessee and Texas A&M, right? I feel like those are two teams that get compared a lot in the SEC. Well, the difference is very clear. Like, A&M doesn't have a Chaz Lanier. It's like, and there are a lot more differences too. Like, Tennessee's just a better offensive team, and the reason they're better is because, they do have a guy like Lanier that makes things so much easier. And so I think sometimes Tennessee does get a bad rap where it's just like, all right, they're the worst offensive team out there. They're a great defensive team, but blah, 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 blah. But that just hasn't been the case the past couple of years now with Connect and now Lanier when he gets going. So, it makes the game a lot easier when you can do that. So,
yeah, and one other place that comparison falls apart is they've got a big who can score too in Milicic, which A&M never really had one this year. So, and it didn't all go right for them tonight. 17 turnovers. Ziegler has 5 of them. So it wasn't a game where they were coasting on all cylinders, but they shot the ball well enough tonight, 11 of 22 from 3 as the clock's winding down. Hit all but one of their foul shots. Weren't great from 2, but it was enough. I mean, UCLA is going to break 50 at the end here. But, I mean, the fact that that's the narrative, they're going to win the game. I mean, it just – I don't know what else to say. I think I'm running out of superlatives for this team. They've got 8 guys who really all give them a lot. They shoot it better than they have in the past. They defend like they always have, and now it's just going to be, if they get Kentucky, which is who I think they're going to get, can they snap the hex that the Cats have had on them?
Yeah, and I think too, like the turnover thing tonight. We talked about that in the preview, or like if there was going to be a path for UCLA to win this game, like we mentioned, Ziegler was just a ridiculous stat in game 1, right, where he goes out and had 12 assists, no turnovers, just absurd. That's what this guy does, just puts up absurd stat lines. We're like, okay, he's probably gonna turn the ball over a little bit tonight because UCLA top 7. I mean, they were 7th, I think, in the country in turnover percentage defense coming into this game. And so we were thinking, all right, if there was a path for UCLA, it was going to be you force some turnovers, you force a couple of those scoring droughts. We did see one of them, but still, it just wasn't enough because I think, again, that's where when you're trying to win these rock fights, sometimes you got to be able to score, and UCLA just could not find a way to score. I don't know what our final number is going to look like here, but I mean, Tennessee making threes, that was kind of your difference in the game, 11 to 22, just really good stuff there from the Vols. So again, it wasn't just Lanier; it was having Gainey playing the way he played, which is why I thought it was so impressive. SEC tournament, Jordan Gainey had a great SEC tournament. Ziegler had a couple. Meshack had a couple. I feel like Meshack had a real big one there at one point. I can't remember. It all runs together, but yeah. So I mean, that was kind of your difference there. UCLA just did not. They're going to wind up shooting 36.5% from the field, looks like. So, yeah, and like you said, now if we look ahead, I mean, man, we're really looking ahead to see what that matchup's going to be because we already know what it's looked like for Tennessee against both these teams this year. And you don't always get that look ahead where you're like, all right, I've seen Tennessee play both of these teams or whoever it is.
Yeah.
But we've seen this. Like, we saw the game earlier in the season at Illinois. Speaking of game winners and all that, I mean,
yeah,
we saw that there.
The Jordan Gainey game.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like Jordan Gainey. What do you know? He's been hot here. Maybe he gets hot again against the Illini. But, the 2 games against Kentucky, everyone I know will bring up the continued theme that it is hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. But, listen, I think Tennessee's playing really well right now. And, if you think about it, that first loss Tennessee had against Kentucky, they're coming off that tough loss at Auburn, had to turn right around 3 days later, home game against a team that if the Cats get hot, the Cats get hot. Then they go to Lexington, and we're feeling riding high going into that game, and what do you know? Again, like Kentucky gets them. So teams are still, at a different point now a month later, and we kind of see what that would look like. Of course, it all depends on, who wins the game tomorrow, how do those teams play, and all that. But, yeah, it's an exciting matchup either way because they're both fascinating for their own reasons. So,
by the way, the top half of the bracket, settled into going into next week. And Houston hung on. A Houston team I don't think a lot of teams want to face, but hung on to beat Gonzaga. And then Purdue has kind of quietly advanced out of the top half. So the teams left out of the Midwest are those two, Illinois, Kentucky, and the Vols.
Yeah, it's like the Big Ten. The UCLA is the first Big Ten team to lose, or Wisconsin lost to BYU. So had a couple teams go down tonight. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's like Purdue and Houston. I don't know that we've seen them match up, but I'm like, I feel like those two teams is clockwork. Like, of course, they're just gonna find ways. Except, of course, when Purdue's losing to the number 16 seed or whatever. But yeah, like it's just. I think it's a fun part of the bracket, and that's why I said at the beginning, listen, I said I liked Tennessee's draw at the start, and I thought it was because matchup-wise, you were going to get a team like UCLA, who I thought, as we mentioned, a very defensive-oriented team, felt like this could be the way a game against UCLA would play out, and that's kind of what happened. Hold them to 58 points here. And then it's like, well, you kind of know the opponent you're facing next, whether it's, like we said, a Kentucky or an Illinois. And so, I still like the way it sets up for the Vols. And like I mentioned, now I think we just sort of wait to see how well does the winner play tomorrow. I think the winner's going to have to play pretty well because I think that's going to be a good game between the Cats and the Illini. But, it's going to be kind of funny. Look, Josh, $2 Super Chat. Josh is ready. He wants the Cats. I mean, listen, that's what we're rooting for, too. Let's not kid ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course we're rooting for Tennessee, Kentucky. Now, half of you guys are going to be mad at us because we're going to have to pick a team to win. But nonetheless, our picks don't really mean anything. But, of course, we're signing up for that one. Now, I'll tell you who else is signing up for that one, Chris. Probably the national narrative. Because if that happens, well, what do you know? The SEC lost the team in the Sweet 16. Well, because they got to play each other, maybe. So... look at the SEC coming up short in the Elite Eight. They lost the team. Yeah, well, let's hope that happens. That's a good problem to have. But, so Josh wants Kentucky. Zach with a $5 Super Chat. Chaz Lanier, the savior for Tennessee. Great player. Yeah, he is a great player. And, I mean, he's been that difference maker this season. And that's what they brought him in for. Remember all the conversations we were having in the preseason. Is this guy going to really replace Dalton Connect? Come on, I think that's a lot to ask. Yeah. And you know what? At times, he has kind of just been that guy who said, I'm just going to go out here, score my 20, and everybody else just jump aboard. So that's been it.
Trying to think of what else.
Well, I mean, I think it really is just, it's looking ahead now, and that's where, we don't know the opponent yet. And I think it's really just, like we said, we'll have a better grasp on what the expectation is, as we're looking ahead for Tennessee. But I think overall, and this is why we were doing the gut brackets and having fun with all those. I put Tennessee in the Final Four, I feel like, a couple times this week, and I was just like, hey, I do like the path there. Now, Houston, as we mentioned, it's going to be tough. Winner Kentucky, Illinois is going to be tough for the obvious reasons. But there is something about the way Tennessee's playing right now, and maybe it was just seeing some of that up close too. The way they played in the SEC tournament, I thought we're very impressive. We're playing well down the stretch run of the regular season. So yeah, what are you laughing at?
This is what I'm laughing at.
Well, it's funny because, Matt, I only filled out one. Now, we do the gut brackets. Those aren't official. But I guarantee you, if you go back and look at our gut bracket we did, did we do it on Selection Sunday night? I think we did.
Yeah, I think they ended up much better than our actual brackets.
I was going to say, I guarantee you, if you go back and look at our gut bracket, I think they are actually going to wind up way better than the analysis bracket. It's true, Matt. This was the first year I almost came close to not even filling out a bracket. I told you guys, I was putting my bracket in Thursday
for time.
Thursday morning, when we were doing the live show, I was finishing my bracket as we started. So normally, I would fill out the bracket a little bit more, but I didn't have time this year. We had a lot of teams to get prepared for in this tournament. So, I pretty much just picked it live. So
I want to get back to what Josh said.
Yeah.
The rooting for Purdue, I think that the thought is the game is in Indy.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have a bunch of Purdue fans to contend with.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I mean, I had I had teams I'm thinking if you're Tennessee, you don't want to see, and Houston's one of those. Look, I mean, I guess this year where you've got four really, really dominant number one seeds. So maybe it's six of one half of the half dozen of the other. But I think I would probably rather see, like, I don't want any part of Florida, but I'd almost rather see Duke or Auburn than Houston if I'm Tennessee.
Yeah, and I know what people are going to say. We've heard many times over the past month, Houston's overrated. But guys, I'm telling you, they have one
No.
regulation loss this year. One game in regulation they've lost all season, and that was a 5-point loss to Auburn on November the 9th. They lost in overtime to Alabama, overtime to San Diego State, overtime to Texas Tech. Like, it's just they are not overrated. They are exactly where they need to be. And so if they wind up being the team, it's going to be a great matchup. Like I hope that's the matchup. Whether it's Tennessee or Kentucky getting Houston, I hope that's the game. Again, should Kentucky advance against Illinois? Because I think you want to play the best. Give me the best to get to the Final Four. And Houston has been the best of the best this season. Like they are right there for a reason. We bring up all those ridiculous KenPom stats of the, whatever, 4 teams over, whatever that threshold was. They've been that good. So anyone who says that Houston's not any good, that doesn't mean they can't lose a game in this tournament, Chris. But to say they're
Right.
they're overrated, I'm not buying it. So,
well, two things. I think there's a perception of Houston that's a little bit outdated. That they can't score. It's just all defense. But I mean, they had 2 or 3 guys that shot low 40s from 3 at a high
they're
volume.
the best shooting team in the country. Yeah.
Right. It's not what you think it is if you haven't looked into it. So,
no.
Number 2, did you see the stat? I don't mean to make this the Houston podcast, but we are talking about the side of the bracket that both Kentucky and Tennessee are in. Did you see the stat on who had the most wins in the country starting with the 17-18 season?
It's got to be them, right?
And at a tie.
17-18. I don't know. Tennessee?
Gonzaga.
No,
The 2 teams.
Vols won a lot of games, but yeah. Okay. No, I think Chris is frozen. Somebody's frozen. Is it Chris? Going once?
Yeah, it's
going
me.
twice?
Sorry.
He's back. That's okay.
11:14 at night is a strange time for my internet to suck, but it does. So anyway,
the internet's recycling. It's doing its reset process. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why is this guy doing this? But I'll tell you who's excited. That's Kevin. $100 super chat.
Kevin, thank you.
It's in the AM in the East, but $100 super chat to say go Vols. Also taking a shot at Mick Cronin. Kevin said, I'm going to pay my $100 and I'll take a shot at whoever I want to take a shot at.
It's not very nice.
Oh, my. Well, anyways, Cronin's a good coach, but I feel like they've had some losses like this in his career. Just like this, the same sort of scenario, whether it was Cincinnati, UCLA. So, all right, Tennessee fans, how you feeling heading into the matchup? We'll ask you the same thing. I know Josh weighed in earlier, but Tennessee fans, would you rather see Illinois or would you rather see Kentucky? Who do you want to play in the next round? Weigh in the chat. We asked that earlier with different fan bases asking who you want to play. So, yeah. So let us know. Who would you rather play in the round of 16? One step closer to the Final Four. That's the question for you here tonight. So we're going to hop off here in a few because it is late. But you guys are excited. We got almost 700 people in here watching. Midnight on the Eastern time zone. But, yeah, Kevin wants the Cats. Richard said, it don't matter who we play. Go
What
Vols.
time is Kentucky, Illinois tomorrow?
I'm going to pull up the schedule here. It's a great question because I had the schedule earlier and I just did not look at it. So I think they are, what is it? I'd like to tell you, Chris, but I don't have the schedule yet. I'll find it shortly. The games are, I know Florida UConn plays the early game. Somebody in the chat don't know this, but it takes me a minute to pull this up.
While you're stalling, did you see the call in the BYU Wisconsin game tonight?
Which one?
The one that got a player ejected.
I would not have as many eyes on that one as I wanted to.
The flagrant two. The elbow to the, it got talked about a lot on Twitter.
I'll have to go back and watch it.
Example of over officiating.
Yeah.
Not that happened this year.
Well, that's never happened. All right, so your schedule tomorrow, Florida and UConn, 11:10 Central. So that's the opener on CBS. Game 1, Kentucky, Illinois, 4:15 Central. That's on CBS as well. Alabama, St. Mary's, 5:10 on TNT. Then Iowa State, Ole Miss, 6:45. So luckily, no midnight chats or live streams tomorrow night.
What are we doing? Start tipping this game off at the hour. I mean, you could have started the games at 11 or I mean, why do we have a single tip off at 11:10 today or whatever that was?
Yeah, well,
could you not have staggered these games better? And then you had terrific Houston and Wisconsin games going down to the wire while this game was starting. Like, why didn't we not stagger it a little bit more?
That's how we do it. That's how this tournament goes. So, by the way, Josh with a $5 super chat. Bring me Kentucky. Bring him Houston. Wants the toughest path. I agree. It's what you should be rooting for. Keep doubting us. Feeding off the hate are the Vols. You're not getting any hate from me. I'll tell you that. Here's a good question from Josh. $2 super chat. Over under 2.5 SEC teams advance tomorrow. Ooh. As the pessimist of the group, I'm going to say under. But I did pick 3 of the 4 to win, which is not good for those teams. So
I would take the over. In fact, I had all 4 of them winning.
I know, but there's some tough matchups here. I'm telling you. I think Kentucky's got a tough matchup against Illinois. I think Ole Miss got a tough matchup against Iowa State. I don't think Alabama's free and clear of potential upset against St. Mary's based on Alabama's first game. And again, Florida playing the defending back-to-back national champions. Yeah, here you go. Florida fan with PTSD from 2014. I get it.
Yeah.
So, I get it. I think tomorrow's are, not that today's weren't interesting, Chris. I think tomorrow's games are a lot more fascinating for these kind of reasons. You just got some very interesting storylines in all these games. And, I'm rooting for the best. So.
See, I think Alabama's going to kill St. Mary's.
I don't. You weren't on the. We did the preview this morning. Alabama has played, I think, 2 games, like below or 70 possessions or lower. St. Mary's only played 2 games, 70 possessions or higher. I think, something like that. And it's just like, whoa. Look, the common thing we pointed out. What did St. Mary's do to Gonzaga? They completely slowed them down all 3 times, pretty much. And so. They've proven they can do it.
Alabama's tempo proof.
Well, I know, and that's why we brought up the stat and why we picked Alabama was because that's what they do. But I need to see a little bit better from Alabama than I saw in game 1. But I think they're going to be okay. But just saying, those are fun ones though. So I don't know what our schedule is going to be tomorrow. We'll know we'll do something after Florida UConn, but after that, you got a lot of these kind of interesting tip times. So. We'll probably go live after Kentucky, Illinois. Alabama, St. Mary's may still be going, and then we'll do something for Iowa State, Ole Miss to wrap up the official second round of the SEC in the NCAA tournament. So, yeah. All right.
Is that a wrap?
You guys got anything else? We're out of here. A little
Where's
short
Sam?
and sweet.
How did we not have Sam tonight?
He's probably in the arena. He's probably waiting outside for the referees, even though they won. But maybe that's what he's doing. But
maybe.
Yeah. So, yeah. Josh's going to go $5 on the way out here. Can see a world where Ole Miss wins and Kentucky loses or Bama. No, I look, Chris had Ole Miss in the Elite Eight. So,
yeah.
I could see all 4 SEC teams losing.
Teams that can't shoot are not doing well in this tournament.
No. We'll see. All right. We're out of here. We appreciate you guys.
4.
Appreciate you guys. Matt's unsubscribed. Listen, Matt, I'm trying to keep this going. Again, you want me to say, oh, I'm guaranteeing wins? Like, come on, you don't want me to say that. So, not at all. You know what's up here. All right. We appreciate you guys. 4 streams today. 4 reaction shows. You guys are the true MVPs. So, 4 more tomorrow. Or maybe 3, depending on if we combine a couple together. But we'll see.
All right. That's a wrap here at Southeastern 16. Got, as Blake said, more games coming tomorrow. Hope you'll catch us in. Hit the subscribe button, enable your notifications so you can. For Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you. Have a great night. We'll see you again soon with more SEC basketball content here at Southeastern 16.